Welcome to our deep dive on Naval Ravikant. He's quite a figure entrepreneur, investor, kind of a modern philosopher too, especially in the tech space.
Definitely. He's seen the ups and downs.
Yeah, and his ideas on like wealth and living well have really caught on. So think of this as your quick, focused guide to who he is and what he's really about.
Right. And for this concise overview, we've pulled from quite a bit articles, interviews, his own stuff online, like his Twitter feed and podcast, and of course, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Which is sort of a compilation of his key thoughts.
Exactly. The goal here is efficiency, really, to just pull out the core insights from everything he's done and said, give you a solid, clear picture without, getting lost in the weeds.
Perfect. Short and sweet, but hitting the essentials. So, okay, let's jump in. Where does his story actually begin?
Well, he was born in New Delhi back in 1974, but then when he was about 9, he moved to New York City with his mom and brother.
Just the three of them. What about his dad?
His father was a pharmacist in India, but apparently had a really tough time getting his credentials recognized in the U.S. Ended up working in a hardware store, I think. And, well, sadly, his parents split up not long after they arrived.
Wow, okay. So a huge move, a new country, and then dealing with that family situation. Sounds like a tough start.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. Growing up in a single-parent household, there were financial struggles right away. His mom worked multiple jobs, went to night school.
So that probably meant he had to become pretty independent pretty fast.
Absolutely. He talks about that fostering a sense of self-reliance from a young age. You can kind of see how that threads through his later life, right?
Makes sense. And I read somewhere he was a big reader early on.
Oh, totally. He called himself a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
The library was his go-to place after school. He's actually called reading his first love, even his superpower.
Superpower, huh? What kind of stuff was he reading?
Pretty much everything, it sounds like. Comics, sci-fi, but also, history, psychology, tech stuff, just soaking it all in. It was like his own self-directed education.
So that lifelong learning habit started really early. Interesting. What about actual school?
He got into Stuyvesant High School, which is, a really top public school in New York. He actually credits Stuyvesant with changing his life.
How so?
Said it gave him validation, sort of opened the door to higher education. Even then, though, he was working service jobs on the side.
Right. And wasn't there a story about one of those jobs? Something about a party?
Yeah, apparently he was working, I think, catering at a rich classmate's party, and seeing that wealth, that lifestyle supposedly really lit a fire under him, got him focused on, well, creating wealth for himself.
Okay. A pivotal moment, maybe. And then college.
Dartmouth. He graduated in 95, I believe. Degrees in computer science and economics.
That's a powerful combo, especially heading into the dot-com era.
For sure. He apparently thought about law school for a bit, but then just bought an old Mac Classic with a loan and taught himself coding instead.
Resourceful. And then Silicon Valley called?
Pretty much. Did a very short stint at Boston Consulting Group. Sounds like it wasn't his scene at all. And then boom, Silicon Valley in 96. Joined an early ISP called At Home.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Foundation laid. Let's get into the entrepreneurial stuff. Opinions was the first big one, right?
Yeah, 1999, consumer review site. Raised a decent chunk of money, seemed promising. But then came the merger in 2003 with Daytime, which later became shopping.com.
And that didn't go smoothly.
Not at all. It ended up in a lawsuit. Naval and some co-founders sued, basically saying the company was undervalued in the merger. Despite shopping.com having a successful IPO later, their shares ended up worthless. He's called it a horrific experience.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds brutal. But maybe educational in a painful way.
Absolutely. You can draw a direct line from that mess to a lot of his later work. He got really focused on, the founder-investor relationship, transparency, all that stuff.
So that led to venture hacks.
Exactly. Around 2007, he co-authored that blog, just practical, no-nonsense advice for entrepreneurs trying to figure out VC deals, trying to level the playing field a bit.
Giving founders the inside scoop
Yeah.
makes sense after his opinions experience.
Right. And around the same time, he started the Hit Forge, an early-stage VC fund, about $20 million.
Made some good calls there.
Some really good calls. Early investor in Twitter, Uber, Stack Overflow.
Wow. Okay, so he's definitely got an eye for potential. But then came AngelList, which feels like his biggest impact on the ecosystem itself.
I'd agree. Co-founded that in 2010 with Babak Nivi. The whole idea was just open things up, make it easier for startups to find angel investors, make the process more transparent.
Kind of disrupting the old way of doing things.
Totally. It played a part in the JOBS Act, too, which helped ease fundraising rules. And, I mean, AngelList got valued at what, $4 billion by 2022? Plus, it runs Product Hunt now. Huge influence.
Yeah, it definitely changed how a lot of early-stage funding happens.
Yeah.
Did he slow down after that?
Not really. 2014, he co-founds Metastable Capital. This was super early in crypto.
A crypto hedge fund
Yeah.
back then.
Yep. Investing in Bitcoin, Ether, Monero. Got institutional investors interested. He was definitely ahead of the curve there. Helped popularize ICOs, too.
Always looking for the next thing.
Seems like it.
Mhm.
Then 2017, Spearhead. That's a fund that actually gives capital to founders to make their own angel investments.
Huh. That's interesting. Kind of empowering the next wave.
Exactly. Paying it forward, you could say. And even just last year, 2023, he co-founded AirChat, which is a social media app using generative AI.
So still right at the cutting edge.
Absolutely. And it's worth remembering, AngelList was actually his 7th company. He had others before, like Genoa Core, Vast.com, that didn't quite hit.
Right. Success often involves a few swings and misses.
For sure. It wasn't an overnight thing, even for him.
Okay, so that's the founder journey. What about his investment philosophy? What guides those decisions, like the early bets on Uber and Twitter?
Well, a few key things stand out. Big focus on the long term. He talks about playing long-term games with long-term people.
So relationships and reputation matter.
Hugely. And he fundamentally believes wealth comes from equity ownership, not salary, but owning a piece of something.
Right.
Then there's leverage.
Leverage, like financial leverage.
Not just that, he talks a lot about permissionless leverage. Think code and media. You write code once, it can serve millions. You create media, it can spread globally almost for free. No one needs to give you permission to use that kind of leverage.
Ah, I see. Scalability without gatekeepers. Powerful idea. What about the people he backs?
Founder quality is like #1. He looks for intelligence, sure, but also deep knowledge of their specific area, a clear vision, and just grit. Resilience.
The ability to bounce back from setbacks, like he had to.
Exactly. He also acknowledges great founders can be unconventional people. He's looking for scalable ideas, big potential impact. And he gets the risk-reward thing in early stage, lots of failures, but the wins can be massive.
And his track record speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Pretty much. Personally invested in maybe 200 companies, over 70 exits, more than 10 unicorns, and AngelList enabled thousands more investments. HitForge was aiming for like 10, 20x returns.
Yeah, names like Uber, Twitter, Notion, plus the early crypto stuff. It shows a real knack.
Definitely.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond the business side, he's almost more famous now for his ideas on, well, life. Wealth, happiness, learning.
Right. His philosophy for living, you could call it. It really seems to boil down to 3 main things: wealth, health, and happiness. And they're all interconnected, supported by constant learning.
So how does he define wealth? It's not just money, right?
No, he's very clear on that. Wealth is assets earning while you sleep. Money is just how we transfer wealth. Status is like your rank in the social hierarchy. He sees that as a bit of a trap.
So how do you build actual wealth, according to him?
Equity, like we said.
Yeah.
Specific knowledge, that's the stuff you know that can't be easily taught, usually comes from your unique curiosity and passion. And leverage, GAN, code, and media are his big examples. Plus, long-term thinking, taking responsibility, knowing how to build and sell, and valuing your time, like really valuing it, have an aspirational hourly rate in mind.
An hourly rate for your life. Interesting framing.
Yeah. And he sees the internet as this massive force multiplier for all of this.
Okay, that's the wealth part. What about happiness and health? Those seem more internal.
They are. His take on happiness is pretty unique. He says it's the default state when you remove desire. So happiness isn't about adding something positive, it's about removing the things that make you unhappy, like wanting things you don't have.
Subtracting desire. And health.
Foundational. Absolutely critical, both physical and mental health. Can't build wealth or be happy if your health is shot. And underpinning it all is learning.
The superpower again.
Exactly. Continuous, broad learning. Read foundational stuff, microeconomics, game theory, psychology, not just the latest trends. And keep a beginner's mind. Always be open, curious, like you're just starting out. Use mental models to make better decisions.
It's a very integrated system he's describing.
It really is. And he's practiced what he preaches in terms of sharing these ideas, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, Twitter, his podcast, the nav.all website, the Almanac. He uses that permissionless leverage of media incredibly effectively.
Totally. It's a perfect example of his own principles in action, reaching millions without needing a traditional publisher or network.
So stepping back, what's the overall impact? his legacy so far?
Well, in the startup world, AngelList genuinely changed things. More transparency, more access to funding, definitely empowered founders more, contributed to new funding models like Syndicate.
Right, shifted the power dynamic a bit.
Yeah, pushed for clearer deal terms in VC too. And obviously, he was an early influential voice in crypto, helping bring it more mainstream within tech and investing circles through things like MetaStable.
And beyond tech and finance.
He's become a huge figure in personal development. People really connect with his actionable advice on wealth, happiness, how to think better. The Almanac really cemented that. He even got named TechCrunch's Angel Investor of the Year at one point.
And that idea of empowering others, like with Spearhead.
Right, it creates this ripple effect. It's not just about his own success, but enabling others. That's a big part of his influence, I think.
Now, we should touch on critiques. Is there anything out there pushing back against his ideas or his history?
The main thing you find documented is really that opinions fallout, the lawsuit, the zeroed out shares. It highlights the messy side of startups and mergers, potential conflicts.
But you mentioned earlier that might have actually helped his credibility.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Going through that public struggle probably made him more relatable to other founders who'd faced tough situations. It showed he'd been in the trenches.
Interesting twist. Any other potential critiques, maybe less documented?
Well, one thing you could infer, perhaps, is the risk that comes with distilling complex ideas into tweets or short podcast segments. His strength is making things concise and memorable, but does some nuance inevitably get lost?
Yeah, the simplification needed for mass appeal might flatten things out sometimes. It's a
Yeah,
trade-off, I guess.
possibly. But it's not something people seem to explicitly criticize him for, based on what we reviewed. The opinions thing is the main historical point of friction.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize this. If we wanted the Naval Ravikant playbook, short version, what are the absolute core principles?
Okay, quick version. Focus on wealth, health, and happiness. They're linked. Build wealth using equity, specific knowledge, follow your real curiosity,
Mhm.
and leverage, code, media. Think long term.
Got it. Wealth, equity, plus specific knowledge, plus leverage, plus long-term. What else?
Cultivate happiness internally by wanting less. Prioritize health, physical and mental, above almost everything. Be a perpetual learner of the basics, use mental models, stay curious like a beginner.
Learn forever. Stay humble.
Right. Value your time immensely. Build a strong reputation. Be authentically yourself. And use the internet. It's the great equalizer. It really emphasizes your own agency, gives you frameworks, kind of like Stoicism updated for the digital age.
That's a great summary. Wealth, health, happiness, learning, leverage, long-term.
Hmm.
So, wrapping up, Naval Ravikant is clearly more than just one thing.
Definitely not. Successful founder, yes. Influential investor, yes. But also someone who's thought deeply about how to operate effectively and live well in the modern world and shared those thoughts widely.
And his impact on the startup scene, particularly through AngelList, is undeniable. He really has shaped things. So as we aim for, this is a pretty focused look, a concise overview.
Yeah, hopefully hit the key points. There's obviously a lot more depth to explore if any particular area caught your interest.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Okay, so thinking about Naval's ideas, how could you apply the principles of specific knowledge, that unique skill set born from your curiosity and permissionless leverage in your own life, whether that's for building wealth or just making an impact you care about?
And maybe even simpler. What's just one small step you could take, like today, to cultivate that beginner's mind in an area you genuinely want to learn more about?